Welcome everyone to this WFA webcast on ensuring diversity is a priority in food and agriculture. I'm Jamie Chadwick, and on behalf of AgriBriefing and the entire women in food and agriculture community, thank you for tuning in today. I'm honored to be your host. We have pre-recorded this webinar to allow for our speakers to be available during the presentation to answer your questions in the Q&A chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. If you post a question in the questions tab, our speakers will be able to type a response back to you, so please ask away throughout the webcast. In addition, we will also be releasing a number of polls throughout this 40 minutes, so if you want to share your opinions on topics that are being discussed and see what others in the industry have to say, please do participate in these, and you can do that either during the webinar or at the end, whatever you are comfortable with. So with that, let me introduce you to the fantastic speakers that are joining us today. We have Jennifer Walker. She is HR Vice President with ADM. Ebony Weber, Chief Operations Officer with Minorities in Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Related Sciences. Julie Zimney, Global HR Lead with Cargill Animal Nutrition. And Christiane Junqueira, VP of HR Centers of Expertise and Corporate Functions at Bunge. Welcome, panelists. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and discussing these essential issues. To start, maybe you can each kind of reintroduce yourselves in a little more detail and explain what diversity means to you. Jennifer, maybe we can start with you.
Thank you for having me here today. At ADM, I have responsibilities for global benefits and HR operations. When I think about diversity, I think about creating access and awareness of opportunities for everyone. At ADM, we believe through teams, we achieve stronger results. And research demonstrates this. More diverse teams are higher performing companies. They boost innovation, achieve stronger financial results. So when we think about diversity, we think about gender, ethnicity, geographic footprint. We think about diversity that's both invisible as well as visible. Someone who may identify as LGBTQ, someone who may have a disability. All of these experiences and perspectives come together to build a stronger team. But for the individual to be able to operate and to have that strong performance, the person has to feel the ability and safe to bring their full self to the organization. And when we do that, that's when we have success.
Great, thank you for that, Jennifer. How about Ebony? Can you give us your thoughts on that?
This is Ebony Weber. I'm Chief Operating Officer for Minorities in Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Related Sciences. And what diversity means to me is really a celebration of what everyone brings to the table. It's the inclusion and the elevation of those voices in your decisions, in your business practices, in the way that you market, the way that you communicate. And so for us here at Manners, diversity is elevating all of those voices that have been underrepresented, those voices that bring those unique perspectives to the table, those voices that challenge the status quo. And for us, diversity is a celebration of all those unique perspectives that we all bring to the table, no matter whether you're male, female, non-binary, and the multiple other ways, the intersectionalities that all make us unique. So it's really just a celebration and a seat at the table for everybody.
I love that celebration. That's exactly what we're striving to do here as well. Julie.
My name is Julie Zimney, and I am the Global HR Leader for Cargill Animal Nutrition. I've been with Cargill in a number of our businesses for a long time, and during my career, my passion for celebrating our differences and creating an environment where people can do their best work has run very deep. I've had the opportunity to work with and, more importantly, learn from people from many backgrounds and many walks of life. So I've also seen firsthand the impact of full engagement when employees can show up and do their best work. At Cargill, we think it's incredibly important to think about and talk about inclusion and diversity. That's really key because if we don't create an inclusive environment for all kinds of diversity, whether it's race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, we won't be able to retain top talent.
Great. And Chris?
Hello, my name is Cris Junqueira. I'm Vice President of Human Resources for HR Centers of Expertise and for corporate functions at Bunge. For me, diversity means the reality of the present and the future, but should also mean fun and excitement and not pain. Every time I think about diversity, I think about different ideas, always building to a better outcome and with a great representation of whatever differences we do have. And it may come in forms of gender, may come in religion and geography and everything. At Bunge, diversity is at the center of everything we do. On an amazingly global kind of footprint, we see amazing diversity in terms of geographies, and we are building in order to continue to grow into all forms of diversity into our business. It has been the center of the dialogue with our leaders, especially recently. It has been for a while, but recently it has increased a little bit of the voice that we have around the table with diversity and inclusion.
Thanks so much. So, what we focus on in our industry is a lot of the very unique issues that the food and agriculture industry is facing in the current climate. We have the COVID-19 pandemic, we have socioeconomical issues and political issues happening, trade issues, things like that. So it's a very unique time to be in the industry, and it's certainly a very challenging time to be in the industry. Why do you think in the current climate that ensuring diversity is now more important than ever? Jen, maybe we can start with you.
When I think about the current climate, at companies like ADM and the ones on the call, diversity and inclusion has always been important. But with the current climate, we're seeing a bigger spotlight. We're seeing a tipping point that we've never had before, and we can't lose this opportunity. And so we have to have that speed and rate of change that the environment demands, not for just today, but the workforce that we're building for the future. So at ADM, we've been having a lot of listening tours, speaking with colleagues to see what's the challenge, what's the barrier, what's the opportunity go forward, how can we listen, how can we learn, how can we be better? And that's really what it's about. How can we not just have a target, but exceed that target so that we're building a company where people feel safe, they feel that they can be authentic, they're heard, and they can be part of the progress that we can achieve together.
Absolutely agree with that. Julie, where do you stand with this?
I completely agree with what you said, Jen. I think now is absolutely the time. More than ever, in a world where many of our teams are working virtually, inclusion is especially critical. I think it's possible for teams to lose connection and clarity to the company's vision without that in-person interaction. And the risk of non-inclusive dynamics is very high. And so I think now more than ever, companies really need to invest in their I&D efforts. I believe that fast movers in this space, even during a global pandemic, will see the benefits of these efforts in innovation, organic growth, and employee commitment.
And Ebony?
I think, I'm one of those individuals who definitely think timing is everything. And so as unfortunate as having the global pandemic has been, I think it has allowed people to be home and focus in a way that has allowed us to not have the ability to turn away, which has really been a catalyst for action. And so for me, I think, having it be more personable, and where now you're zooming from home. And so it's like home is work and work is home. And so there used to be this bubble of an idea that when you come to work, you leave home behind. And so now having that dynamic and that shift totally, be upside down, I think has allowed all of us to kind of examine and see a lot of the areas that we feel can really be improved, that maybe we have not had the ability to act, or maybe not had the motivation to act.
And finally, Chris, why do you think ensuring diversity is more important now than ever?
Perfect. I can't agree more that the business case for diversity and inclusion is even stronger with what's happening around the globe. However, if we look in previous crises, the history tells us that there is a real risk that diversity may now be deprioritized in organizations. But some of the qualities and characteristics that we have in diverse and inclusive kind of companies, like innovation, the ability to change, the adapt and resilience that it brings, will be much needed in facing and recovering from the crisis as well. So it's not the time to deprioritize diversity, quite the contrary. So we need to be able to both maintain the progress that we have achieved and continue to move the needle in terms of diversity, but more than average, leverage that in our recovery as well.
So in addition to timeliness, I think Ebony really hit the nail on the head when you said home is now work and work is now home. I think we are just really defining the workspace in 2020, and we're discovering new ways to collaborate and to access and provide information. So do you think that learning from the COVID-19 pandemic is allowing us to better encourage diversity in some way at all levels in the workplace, outside of the office setting? Ebony, I guess I'll start with you because you kind of kicked us off on that one.
Okay. I believe it is allowing us to encourage and, at least promote diversity to me in all levels. I think, again, I don't know for others, I'm working more now, so I don't know if I'm being more productive, but there just seems to be, more time to collaborate. There are more meetings, less travel. So I think we are utilizing almost every hour in the workday to really collaborate and to brainstorm and to connect in ways that people were just unavailable to connect before. And so for us, it's been great to begin to have these very open and candid conversations, to be able to look at diversity, as you mentioned, at every level, from It's Together We Grow and building that pipeline through a lot of those executive leadership roles, board positions. So it just really has opened up the conversation a lot more broader than it's been before, pre-pandemic, I can definitely say.
Yeah, I definitely think we're maxing out the normal workday hours and then adding some on top of that, which is new for a lot of us, I know. Jennifer, do you think that this pandemic is kind of helping us expand our diversity and inclusion efforts?
There's something that Ebony said earlier about, all of the video calls that we're having in this blurring of both our work life and our personal life. We're doing more video calls than ever before. And in a lot of ways, that's created more internal equity among teams. At least at ADM, before, we would have individuals who might be in the room, some might call in, some might be on video. And in the professional setting, when we're all on video, it's creating some equal footing, if you will, to ensure that all voices are heard and that are actively participating in those conversations. And when things go back to normal, if there ever isn't a normal, we have to take that learning with us. How can we use this learning to be better and more inclusive, and just something as simple as a meeting go forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know what we would have done without the technology that we have now if we were given this situation, 40 years ago. I think it's definitely been an interesting shift for the modern day workplace. Julie.
We are challenging so many assumptions that we had about needing to be in person, needing to be in the office, travel, another topic of conversation that's coming up all of the time. How can we allow people to have more time at home and still accomplish everything that they're set out to accomplish? I think that this pandemic and the COVID-19 crisis has also really accelerated the future of work. I think challenging some of the assumptions that we've had, again, about that presence and that face time, the lack of technology, we've proven all of that to be very, very different. And I think we've seen a lot of areas where employees are really excelling and working in a way that they never thought possible before.
And Chris, what are your thoughts here?
Can't agree more. It has been, feels like the pandemic has brought a pressure test for us in the organization in terms of being agile and in terms of adapting to crisis. And it had all over, I would say, in our industry, if you look at our customers as well, the speed of adaptation has been amazingly fast and in very normalized, I would say, across the industries as well. It has taught us on, how to react quickly, but react together as well. We have to join forces in order to be working from home and allowing and ensuring that our operations keep running at our plants in order to maintain the supply chain. I think none of our business had the option to think differently throughout this crisis as well. So I think it was a good test, and it was a good test that brought us together. And I hope that becomes the new norm moving forward as well.
I like what you said about the quick adaptation that companies and individuals and professionals have had to really do. I mean, I think a lot of us can agree the first, 4 to 6 weeks of the lockdown was a bit of a learning curve for everybody, working from home and juggling family and responsibilities and not having that office settings. But now that we're, 4 or 5 months into this thing, it's operating quite smoothly, I think, and everybody's just really pulled together. And I'm continue to be floored by the men and women in the food and agriculture industry that have worked through this pandemic and work with labor shortages and absenteeism and logistical issues and things like that. It's been an extremely challenging environment for everybody, which again speaks to the need for more problem solvers and more diverse thinking and perspectives in trying to work through tests like this, like Chris said. So the next question I want to ask is, what do you think businesses can do to better support women in the workplace? Julie, let's start with you.
One of the things I'm personally really proud of within Cargill, our focus on devising our job descriptions. So we've been working very hard to raise awareness about unconscious bias. And in this project, we have concluded that a considerable part of our job descriptions were written in a very masculine tone. And in partnership with the digital tool Textio, Cargill has been working on a full library of de-biased job descriptions to obtain gender neutrality. We also are hoping to avoid possible bias and guarantee diversity attraction in our hiring. Our numbers in the first couple of pilots are incredibly impressive, and we have so far seen a significant increase in the number of women that are applying for our positions, and also as a result being hired for the openings that we have posted. So I think, again, that unconscious bias, awareness about unconscious bias, and some of these specific actions have really driven some significant change within our businesses.
That's amazing to hear. Thank you. Ebony.
Yes, I think as an organization, we've definitely seen the uptick, the more female students, entering into college and pursuing a lot of these ag careers that was once very male dominated. So that's really encouraging. So it's great to see that a lot of companies are pipeline, a lot of development programs, a lot of sponsorship and mentorship programs for females entering into this space. I think, continuation of those type of programs will be great. I think you can never underestimate of the importance of a mentor and also that representation. And so for me, being a female leader in this space, I definitely always look to try to encourage, identify, promote, and recommend those females when they're in and outside of the room. So I think that's very important for companies to do, is to speak up for those women or that they feel can do the job when they're not in the room.
That was the topic that you just mentioned about sponsors and mentors was a really big part of the discussion last year at the WFA Summit. And it is incredibly important, as you said, for helping women to enter these fields and to progress in these fields. Thank you for that. Chris.
For us at Bunge, our success on keep moving the needle in order to better support women in our workplace has been brought to the center of having a common understanding among all our leaders. in terms of what that inclusion means, what are the benefits of bringing a more equality into our organization, and how can our leaders lead more inclusively on both ways as well. So we have been working a lot on the dialogue. We have been working a lot on raising awareness on the unconscious bias and make everyone part of that conversation, woman and men. And I think it's a journey with no end, where we will need to keep that dialogue going and always challenge ourselves. Another point that has been supporting us a lot into that journey is making sure that we expose our numbers as well. We haven't been very transparent in terms of numbers before, but we have been exposing more and more and more, to the point that the numbers are not only known by our leaders, but by the entire organization. We truly believe that, facts, the numbers will drive action, and we need to narrow down the gender breach with initiatives of offering the equal opportunities to everyone, independently of gender. When without the knowledge of that number, we saw that happening in a different way before. So now it's conscious, it's a fact, and there is action around it. So that has been driving us a lot, and that's how I would kind of look in terms of how to move the needle in other companies as well.
And Chris, you just mentioned keeping that dialogue open and also making sure we include women and men in that discussion is so important. And we've talked about this a lot because, the WFA is women in food and agriculture, but it's incredibly important to have men a part of that community because they are such a huge part of the discussion and uncovering, long held things like unconscious bias that are harder concepts to grasp when you haven't, lived in that world. So I completely agree. Thank you for that. Jennifer.
Thank you. At ADM, we've been a strong supporter of Paradigm for Parity. We've committed by 2030 to have equity or gender parity in our leadership positions. So if you think about the work that we're doing as an organization, we're taking a strong position to model the kind of behaviors and the kind of representation that we want to see. But we also know that for each female leader, what she may want differs. Careers are almost kind of, like cycles. Sometimes we may have to take care of an ailing parent, of small children. Sometimes we may be geographically mobile. Sometimes we may not be. And so similar, we've had a lot of listening tours to really understand what are those challenges, what are those barriers, and then share those stories of success, how individuals have been successful, but also think about through frameworks and support, how we foster that, mentorships, ensuring that we're having ongoing and frequent talent discussions. So at the end of the day, we can have those frameworks and support in place to foster professional and personal growth in an accelerated manner.
Okay, and Jen actually is just leading us into our next topic of discussion. We're going to talk a little bit about recruiting and how we can, encourage diversity when recruiting women at all levels of the business. Julie, let's kick it off with you.
Thanks, Jamie. We're also participating in the achievement of Paradigm for Parity and having that 50-50 gender parity by the year 2030. We also strive to create an organization where women and all kinds of diverse talent can look upwards inside the company and see people like themselves. So an example of how we deal with that when hiring is a couple of key hiring principles that we have. So first, we want to ensure that we have 50-50 gender diverse slates. So we continue to send managers and our recruiting team back to ensure that we have strong representation in that interviews and selection processes. Second, we are also implementing and ensure that we have gender diverse interview panels. So making sure that when candidates come into the organization, they have an experience with a variety of people, with a variety of backgrounds within the organization. So we want to make sure that the hiring principles are kept in place and that the candidates that we interview are not only gender diverse, but also diverse in thoughts and experiences.
And that's exactly what we need with the challenges that we're facing right now. That's great. Ebony.
Yes, I loved the principles, the hiring principles that you just shared. I think those are all definitely steps that organizations can do to, you know, boost that diversity, especially or recruitment when they're recruiting. I think it's also where you source your talent from. And so I think that's definitely part of the process. And so making sure from the very beginning that you're sourcing talent from where diverse individuals come from and where you have that intersectionality of the female or the individual that you're bringing in to for those candidate positions. So one, I would think that's one of the primary ways in which you can definitely boost. And I love what you shared about having those diverse panels, because those diverse people are going to bring very different experiences to the table. And you want to be able to have someone on the other side that can recognize, value, and appreciate those experiences in the same way for those that they may be more have more familiarity with.
Yes, I think like-mindedness is one of the enemies of progressiveness in business. So you really want to have that push and pull, like you said. I agree with that, Chris.
I'm glad that kind of our practices are so aligned. I don't have a magic answer here as well, but at Bungie, what we do, we measure the slate diverse, we measure the hire diverse. We have been exposing bias issues to overcome, kind of doing the recruiting process, and very recently we went back to the table challenging to make sure that every leader have a diversity panel of interviewers throughout the process as well. And it's a long journey. Someone asked me the other day, so when do we celebrate, right? Kind of when do you celebrate the achievement? I think we should celebrate every step of the way. And we do celebrate when we see the increase in the slate diversity, when we see the increase on the higher diversity and so forth. But I don't think it's a long journey. I don't think we will celebrate the end anytime soon, but we should not forget to celebrate every little progress that we do on the recruitment phase, so to support the growing inside the company as well.
I love that. Don't really celebrate, because there's really no end point, right? I mean, we're never going to reach the best. It's just a constant progression to be better all the time. I really, really like that. Jennifer.
You know, a couple of my peers have said, you know, diversity, it's not a sprint. It's a journey. It's a destination that we're going to continue to grow and be better at. And we really think about it for the life cycle of someone's career, from the time we hire to the time we retire. So when we hire, how do we foster that through having diverse panels who are assessing talent? So we have those diversity of perspectives who are looking at candidates, but also candidates see themselves in that panel. They can see themselves in that company. And when we assess talent, that we're doing it in a way to reduce our unconscious bias, that we're doing it in a way that kind of fosters those values that we have as a company. We're also ensuring that we have those kind of supports once someone starts and joins the organization, diverse mentorships, that we're talking about diversity on an ongoing basis in our talent discussions, looking for access to opportunities to develop throughout a career. These are just pieces to the puzzle, but we really have to have those processes in place, those supports in place, so that over the life cycle of someone's career, they're supported.
That's great. Now each one of you has really done the work within your own organizations to boost diversity, and obviously you're all well versed in that. If you had the opportunity to advise other businesses within the food and agriculture space to do one thing to really boost diversity in their organizations, what would you suggest? And Jennifer, I'm going to go backwards and start with you.
You know, within our own organizations, diversity inclusion can't be a project, or it can't be an initiative. It simply has to be the foundation for who we are and what we're doing. And when we're accountable to that, we then execute against that. But, you know, each of our companies are doing wonderful things. ADM has some wonderful efforts in place. Bungie does, Cargill does, Ebony is doing a tremendous work with Manners to help, you know, build those leaders of tomorrow. and each of our companies can see strong progress. But it's why this group is so important, and why Together We Grow is so important, that all of our companies are part of. Individually, we can see progress, but it's only when we come together as an industry, as organizations, academic partners, NGOs, government bodies, that we can build systematic, sustained change. And that's what it's about. It's not just the workforce of today, it's the workforce that we're building for tomorrow. And that's why I get excited, and that's why we're here, because together we can do great things.
And that's fantastic. And really, that beautifully illustrates what the purpose of this community is just to bring these great companies together who are doing the work and are doing making the effort to make the industry stronger and better and more diverse. Chris, what piece of advice would you give businesses looking to do one thing to boost diversity?
So my advice is for us to be intentional. For me, kind of being intentional is at the core of boosting diversity in organization, and it must start at the top of the house. A lot of times we have turnovers at the top of the house, and we think that it's super ingrained, but until we have that voice out again, until we have the organization feeling that there is intention at the top of the house, I don't feel that we are in the right kind of journey. So, don't take your current condition as a moment of shame. That's very, very normal, very natural, but we should take that current condition as a moment to provide clarity for the work that must be done moving forward. So transparent, and sometimes those hard conversations should start at the top of your house and be permeated throughout the entire organization with a lot of intention.
Absolutely, that's great advice. Ebony, what would your advice be?
I really love what was shared throughout our discussion today, and I think there are a few things to me. Is one, I think there's no one thing that you could do to bolster diversity. I think you said it best, that it's a journey, it's a marathon, and so celebrate those wins along the way. I think also you have to be intentional, because you're, going against the status quo and kind of going against the grain, so to speak. So you have to be very intentional about moving forward, because just the forces and dynamics around us through habit will want to force you back into that state of comfort. So I would just say be intentional and be patient and be purposeful.
Intentional. I love that. Yep, that's easy to slide back if you're not continuously focused on being the change that you want to see. I really like that. And Julie, wrap us up here. What would your advice be?
I am just so inspired by the things that I've heard today and agree completely with what Jennifer said. In fact, my one thing that I think businesses could do is commit to change, because I think that together we have such a huge opportunity to shape and change I&D in our industry. So I think that if all of us come together as external partners in this effort to really make sure that the topics of inclusion and diversity are at the forefront, we will just have such a tremendous impact within our entire industry.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up our webcast for today. I want to thank all of our speakers for their extraordinarily interesting insights and advice and feedback today. It was truly a pleasure getting to speak with all of you. Thank you to our viewers for tuning in. Remember to visit us online at wfasummit.com and be the change you want to see. Become a part of the Women in Food and Agriculture community and take advantage of tons of podcasts, videos, and interviews, all available for free on the website. And please do connect with us on LinkedIn for continued updates, discussions, and resources. Now, we're going to keep the questions tab open for about another 10 minutes or so. So if you do have any more questions for our speakers, you still have time to type them in. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.